Welcome to 2 nights with 2 amazing women. This is the first of those 2 nights. My name's Karen Thompson. I'm from Ask Resource Center. I'm going to turn off my camera in just a second so that we can highlight the 2 amazing women who are here with us tonight to share their stories. Tami Hoffman and Keisha Randall are with us tonight. This would be when I would usually read bios, but the whole point is for them to tell their own stories. But tonight is informal, so we're going to let these 2 ladies share what they have learned and what they know. We'll chat for a little bit. Welcome, Tami and Keisha.
So my name is Keisha Randall, and I'm the founder of Steps by Keisha, songs to enhance people signing. And our vision is to bridge the gap between deaf and hearing communities. I'm also a teacher of the deaf to 5 deaf students in Oakland, California. I'm a mom of 2 toddlers, and I'm just passionate about intentional inclusion. So also, I identify with being deaf, and I say that with a big D, which means that I am proud. I'm a proud deaf Black woman, and as the journey has been challenging, will continue to be challenging, I still find purpose in this life, what we call deaf culture, and when bridging the gap. So I was born hearing impaired. That's what I identify with. And what that means is, to a hearing family, I lost some hearing, but I still wasn't deaf all the way. And I didn't learn until later in life that in a deaf community, being hearing impaired meant that something is broken, that they felt like something was broken. So I understand both of those perceptions, which is why now I identify with being deaf, the big D. And so I was diagnosed at the age of 7. Up until the age of 7, nothing. Closed captions, lip reading, not any formal learning, just the way of life. I remember getting in trouble, at home for not responding quick enough, not coming, quick enough. And then I remember stories in school where they said that I was falling asleep all the time. I couldn't stay up the whole time because there was listening fatigue. There was too much sound, too many voices all at the same time, and I was exhausted. I take naps. I still take naps. I'm like the queen of naps. And, at 2nd grade, I got to use hearing aids, and it was the first education my family had experienced. So all that I was taught was speech, teach her to speak, make sure that she learned how to, speak English well. And, ASL wasn't the culture. So I didn't learn until later in life. So I was bimodal from 2nd grade up until 8th grade, and I only had speech classes. I took a test in 8th grade, said, I don't want to take speech classes anymore. When I go to high school, I don't want that to be a part of my schedule. And they allowed me to take a test that exempt me from taking a speech class. And I memorized everything that was on the test so that I could pass the test with flying colors and no longer have to be, excluded from the mainstream community that I was integrated in. And so high school and no devices. At 25, I got the opportunity to get the cochlear implant. I was talking to my audiologist one day, and she was saying, hey, Keisha, I think it would be a wonderful opportunity for you. And when she said it, I thought she meant you would enjoy sound. It would be lovely, to hear like us. That's what I thought then. But I learned later, after we became friends and after becoming implanted too, that she meant the quality of life that you want to have, the things that you want to do, how you plan to impact the world. I think that this would benefit from it. So one of the stories that I remember on the journey of deciding if I was going to be implanted or not, I did some research, and I remember talking to my sister on the phone, and I was telling her, I don't know when I propose a con. And there was a moment where I began to lose my speech. I couldn't, communicate what I was trying to say. And I didn't know ASL. I'm on the phone, and I just had to hang up. And I felt in my spirit that it was a moment of the universe saying, shh, and just listen. And I had no choice but to. And so I went through a spiritual journey. A year later, I got implanted, and we went through this 2 months of deafness period where they warned you wouldn't be able to hear for 2 months. After then, getting activated, my life with the cochlear implant is a life I never experienced before. Would I say the word better? Yes, because it gives me access to a world that I hadn't, seen before, feelings of empowerment that I hadn't experienced before. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. And so now I'm 30, teacher of the deaf, and I still want to empower youth, especially deaf youth, that there's purpose, there's work to be done, and especially within deaf culture and bridging the gap. And so join me. And so I'm happy to, join you guys in this conversation and share your story as well, Miss Tami, because I think we're going to have to work together. This is going to be the support system that gets us all through. And as we see in reality now, we can't do it alone. We need people. We need the hearing community to interpret it for the deaf community. We need access to the hearing community, which is sound or visual support. So I just thank you guys, and I'm excited to be here and open to whatever personal questions you want to ask. Just know that I'm an open book as well. Miss Tami.
You're so great. My name is Tami Hoffman, and I guess I want to start by just thanking everyone for joining tonight. And I also want to thank Ask Resource Center for also letting me be a part of such a special event too. So I appreciate it. And Keisha's the best. Thank you. So I'm a mother. I have 3 pretty cool kiddos, and I have an 8-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a 2-year-old. My older 2 are hearing children, and my youngest has bilateral hearing loss. I just want to start by kind of walking through the story of how it all unfolded, because I don't feel like our story is typical. And I want to be there for other parents that may be starting this journey too. So one of the questions that I get when, if I'm at the park with Ryder, and I guess I should show you a cute picture of him so that you guys get a visual. Hold on. Now you can get a visual for how cute my little nugget is. So one of the questions that I get when we're out and about, if someone sees his hearing aid or if they see me starting to use sign language with him, they'll ask, so was he born with hearing loss? Or sometimes I'll get like, how did you know he had hearing loss? Because, you don't think about that when you bring a baby home from the hospital, especially if you have 2 hearing children also. And the answer to that is I didn't learn about Ryder's hearing loss until after his first birthday. In hindsight, when we were in the hospital after Ryder was born, I remember the nurse coming in to take him for his hearing screen. And when she brought him back in, she said, well, we're going to try that a little bit later. He did refer on both sides, and it's probably just fluid and whatnot from going through delivery. So we'll check it in a little bit. So she came back in a little bit, she took him again, and she said, well, he still must have fluid on that side because he did refer on both sides again. So we'll check it in the morning. And so when she left that night, I remember kind of being worried about it a little bit, but honestly, she was pretty reassuring that it happens frequently, that little babes don't always pass their hearing screen. And so the next morning she came in and she took him and brought him back, and she said, he passed. And I remember kind of being like, oh, good, oh, good, and honestly, I didn't ever really give that another thought. We took him home, and we never really thought about that he potentially might not be hearing to his fullest potential. And so fast forward 4 months, Ryder ended up hospitalized when he was 4 months old for some respiratory illnesses. And his little lungs just couldn't seem to fight any type of respiratory virus that he came in contact with. A few months after that, he had RSV, and kind of following those, he had some ear infections. With the ear infections, it came kind of some of those behavioral things where he'd tug at his ears a lot, and sometimes he'd kind of hit his head almost as if he was trying to like pop his ears. So I had taken him to the pediatrician thinking that he had ear infections, and the pediatrician was like, you know, his ears look good. So I pushed a little bit because I thought maybe he needed like tubes or something else was going on with his ears. And so I asked the pediatrician if we could get a referral to an ENT doctor. The pediatrician was hesitant to give us the referral to the ENT doctor, and because he had only had like 2 ear infections. And I kind of pushed it a little bit because I just really felt like maybe he needed another look at his ears. And so at this time, Ryder was 9 months old. We get to the ENT doctor, and the ENT doctor, before you even see the doctor, you see an audiologist. And so, you know, I brought my little 9-month-old baby in there, and I mean, honestly, just didn't even think anything about the hearing screen. It was just like, I really wanted to see if he needed tubes. And bless this audiologist's heart, she literally tried like 4 different machines because she just couldn't figure out why he wasn't passing the hearing screen. And so I finally get to the doctor, and the doctor's like, well, he's had some respiratory viruses, so let's wait another 6 weeks and test him again. And so we came back 6 weeks later and did another hearing screen. I had the same audiologist, and, you know, she again was like she tried multiple little machines, and he referred on both sides. And so that led us to an ABR, which is an auditory brain response, where they sedated him in my arms and measured the brain activity to the sounds, putting them in his ear. And I remember the audiologist, after they sedated him, she asked us to leave. And I remember her asking me when we walked out, do you want me to take a mold of his ear in case he needs hearing aids? And I said yes, and we walked out of the room. And kind of at that point, I was to a point where I had accepted that my kiddo was probably going to need some hearing aids. And I think I had hit that point where it was like, I knew we had some hearing loss, and we were gonna get him some hearing aids and get him in a hearing world. And when they called us to tell us that they were done with the ABR, and we went back up there, and the audiologist she kind of like met us at the door, and she said, well, we're getting nothing from the right side, nothing at all. And I don't know if it's auditory neuropathy or not, but I definitely can't aid that side because we have no idea what loss that he has on that side. And he has moderate to severe loss on his left side. And she followed that up with, what color hearing aid do you want for the left side? And I remember being like, I can't process any of this right now. And I certainly can't pick the color of his hearing aid because I have no idea what auditory neuropathy is. I have no idea, why isn't he having any sound on his right side? And I just was completely overwhelmed. And I don't know, I guess I just feel like it's important for parents to know that in that moment, I was not okay. I was most certainly starting the grieving process of my child's hearing. And it's okay to not be okay sometimes too. And so I think that's important for parents to recognize that it's not easy. And, that his little hearing loss was something that I felt like I almost took for granted, that like I have 2 hearing children, and I was grieving the loss of his hearing. There's really no other way to describe it. But I guess with that is, after I took some time to kind of swallow everything, I buckled up and said, let's go. And, a month later, he had his hearing aid. We had that early intervention, and he was a rock star at keeping it in. And we noticed the benefits of the hearing aid, that he was responding to sound and he was doing really well with it, and things were going good. Another question of parents always ask me too is, well, what caused it? And so that was my next journey is, well, what caused Ryder's hearing loss? And I had talked to his pediatrician about it, and kind of out of nowhere, his pediatrician said, has he ever been tested for CMV? And I know I looked at him and said, what is CMV? And he's like, cytomegalovirus. And I'm like, I have no idea what he just said. So we said no. Obviously, he had not been tested for CMV. So we tested Ryder that day for CMV, and his results did come back positive, which didn't necessarily mean that that's what caused his hearing loss, but that was a possibility. So that led us to Iowa City, where we actually did an MRI to look at Ryder's inner ear for any abnormalities, and they found a white matter or calcifications on his brain that were consistent with a virus. And so we then saw an infectious disease doctor, a neurologist, a developmental peds referral that took us to a number of professionals there. And the neurologist was actually the one that it's apparently a Iowa mandate for the birth blood spot to be held for 5 years after birth. And she was able to get a hold of that, and they sent his birth blood spot to Seattle. It's like the only lab or something that can test for CMV through blood, because it's usually a saliva or urine sample. And so they sent that off to Seattle, and we waited months to get the results, and it did come back positive for CMV. So we did get confirmation that Ryder's hearing loss was likely caused by congenital cytomegalovirus. So what that means is I may have contracted CMV when I was pregnant with him, and it affected him in utero. So that kind of led me down a whole new journey of starting to learn about what CMV is. It's a common viral infection, and it's also the leading non-genetic cause of hearing loss that infants are born with in the United States. And this was astonishing to me that I'm an educated mother who also worked at this point in child welfare, and I had never heard of CMV. So I've kind of made it part of my life journey here is to bring more awareness to CMV and educating women and pregnant women about it, because it is preventable if you're aware of it. And this is another chart and this is from the National CMV Foundation. And if this interests anybody, I would certainly suggest going to their website, because they have tons of great resources. But it shows you the blue here is the awareness. And so the awareness of these different types of things like HIV, Down syndrome, SIDS, spina bifida, this is all the awareness. And then the orange is the actual US annual incidence. So you can see how there's like 0% awareness of what CMV is, but yet it happens in 1 in 200 births. So it's pretty common, and the awareness is just isn't there. So I won't go too much on it. I just want to at least bring it to the forefront to anyone that may, think that could be the cause of their hearing loss. And just the 5 simple steps to help prevent it is avoid contact with saliva when kissing a child, pacifiers, don't share food. I mean, I had two older kiddos at the time I was pregnant with Ryder, and it wouldn't be uncommon for me to share a snack or share a drink with them, just as, kind of motherhood survival you do. So that is kind of my story. If at any time that anybody wants to visit with me or needs a listening ear, I'd be glad to do that. And for any parents that are out there, I guess some things that I would recommend, especially if you're just starting this journey, is sign language is amazing. I almost get emotional when I talk about it, because there are times when Ryder can't hear me, or when he can't hear his dad or his sisters. And sign language has just been such a blessing in our way to communicate with him. And even though our end goal is we want Ryder to hear, We want him to be able to be in this hearing world, but we also need to communicate with him. And so I guess sign language has just been just such a blessing for our family. I truly just almost get emotional thinking about it because it's just so great. The second thing is parent advocacy. Don't be afraid to ask questions, and certainly don't be afraid to question anyone that, I mean, if you have a gut feeling that doesn't feel right, there might be a reason for it. So just don't be afraid to ask for somebody else's opinion or get more information to give yourself some peace with that. And just remember your kid's awesome and Ryder's awesome. And there's so many great resources and people like Keisha out there that are absolutely incredible. So that's my story, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, ladies. That was wonderful. Keisha, would you mind sharing a little bit more about Steps by Keisha and Inclusion Connection? I know you're also on their board. Would you talk a little bit about what those things are in Iowa?
Yeah, so Inclusion Connection is a resource in the community, not just for the City Valley, but anytime that you want to get connected for learning and education. And we don't know about people with disabilities unless we put ourselves into this world. And so we focused on intentional inclusion, which means you don't have to come to us. We'll come to you. We'll make sure that it's presentable everywhere you go. How do we integrate, whether it's ASL for the deaf community or a wide range? So, and then Steps by Keisha, same thing, intentional inclusion, where we teach ASL to hearing and deaf children. And the goal is to foster that community that is ASL welcome. Like, this is just what we do. It's just, I say on my paper, I'm on the board, but this is what I do in my daily life, and this is what I'm passionate about, and it's about connecting people to each other. And if I don't have the tool, maybe Karen has the tool. Let me ask Karen, let me get you to the right person so that you can continue to push forward in any way that may be.
Thank you, Keisha. That's helpful. And Tami, a couple of questions for you. In what way did you find easiest to pick up on sign initially? Did you connect with a family or go to classes?
Honestly, I started with signing time with Rachel Coleman and just starting there. I mean, someone asked me the other day if I was fluent in sign language, and I was like, well, fluent on a 2-year-old level. But you just have kind of baby steps. You just keep learning. And yeah, I started with Rachel Coleman with signing time. She offers a scholarship for parents that have kiddos from age 0 to 3. And she gives you access to a whole series of, I think there's 2 full units for parents that have a kiddo from age 0 to 36 months, and it's for free. So I did that too.
Great. And then my second question for you is, what way did you find easiest to connect with other families, either families at the same place that you were at, or maybe some other family advocates who were a little bit further down the road that you could learn from?
Connecting with Keisha was probably the first time that I was able to connect with any other families that are going through similar things. I mean, you really have to put yourself out there, and that was hard for me because we're just very private people. And so, but you have to be able to open up your story. And so tonight I'm not afraid to speak in front of people, but tonight was hard because I'm just such a private person. And so you do have to open up and kind of tell your story and get connected with other families. And I hope to keep learning about more families. And I would love to get better with sign language too. And I know that they have little mentors too that can help you get better at being able to sign in full sentences and full communication. And I think that probably will be something I'll end up doing here soon.
Great, thank you. Okay, we have a question from our audience. This question comes from Tammy O'Halloran. Thank you both for sharing your stories. Thank you, Keisha, for your work in Iowa to engage kids in ASL and intentional inclusion, etc. She said she has a couple of questions or comments for you, Tami. Was the pediatrician surprised by the diagnosis of hearing loss? And what type of support would you like to see for families in Iowa?
When you say, was the pediatrician surprised by the diagnosis of hearing loss, you mean connected with the CMV?
Yeah, I meant because you really had to keep speaking up and insisting upon a referral and some of those kinds of things. When it came back that your child had a hearing loss, was he surprised by that, since he kind of had downplayed, moving on? And
that's a great question. And to tell you the truth, I ended up switching pediatricians.
Yep.
I had so much, he was so reluctant. And I remember looking him straight in the face and saying, something's wrong with my kid's ears. And you have parental instincts. And, I think it's important to, when you know something doesn't feel right, to ask somebody else. And it's okay to switch pediatricians and get another opinion. I mean, I wasn't mad at him directly. I just wanted another opinion. And I'm glad I did, because otherwise we wouldn't have been able to intervene as early as we did. That I definitely felt like everything was downplayed. Like, it was just from the start, like, he failed 2 hearing screens at birth, but he passed, which, there was mixed feelings on that across the board. But the consensus was that if he passed at birth, he likely had hearing at birth. Like, he wouldn't have a false positive at birth, but he could have had a false negative at birth. Or you get what I'm saying? So even from the beginning, it was downplayed. And then when we recognized that he was failing the audio tests at the ENT, it was still like, well, let's wait it out. He might magically pass his hearing screen. So yeah, I guess, what type of support would you like to see for families in Iowa? If everyone could have the opportunity that I have had to be able to be involved with Just Ask Resource and Keisha, and being surrounded by people that have been through it, that was what I needed at that time. It's been 14 months now since we found out, and this is really the first time I've been able to kind of open book talk about it. Not because I'm ashamed or anything like that, just because it's hard. It's hard. So yeah, I would have loved to had somebody right beside me saying, like, it's going to be okay, and this is what we need to do, and this is the next steps of, you might want to talk to a speech therapist, you might want to talk to another audiologist, you might want to. That's what I needed at that moment in time. Is I had no idea. Like, I would literally started at nothing. I had no idea how to handle anything, but I dove in deep, and I didn't stop researching, and I talked to multiple professionals. I talked to multiple infectious disease doctors, and then compared their notes, and then called them out if there was discrepancies. This doesn't add up, So just never giving up on it. I hope that answered your question. Feel free to ask more.
I just kind of want to piggyback on some of the things that you were saying.
Please do.
You were saying, imagine as a deaf mom experiencing it. And I'm thinking, imagine, as a deaf individual, how we experience life every day, how overwhelming it feels, and how without these people, let's not make it harder than it has to be. So we need, like you said, the parent advocacy, the, family organization advocacies. A couple of things that I would add to support in Iowa: access to ASL. It needs from starting this preschool, we should be exposed to ASL through elementary, middle school, high school. And then, so what I learned was, you don't have, if you come from marginalized communities like myself, you don't have access to learning ASL until you're in a college setting, and it's nobody's fault. Let's just fill the gaps and get the education where it's supposed to be. The second thing was visual signage. We'll talk about this later when we talk about the EDI conference, but life-changing. If I can see what I have to do, what I'm trying to be, I can believe it in myself, because it reaffirms what I think I hear. If I never have that confirmation, then I freak out, because I don't know, is it what I heard? Did I think he said? I don't know. And so visual signage would be very, very helpful. And then support. So you talked about not having friends until Eddie. I had one friend who's a mom of a deaf child, and the only ones that I knew growing up. I didn't know no deaf Black women. The one deaf lady that I did know, she didn't know any sign language. And so we would just like, hey, did you try this? And we would like troubleshoot our CIs through text messages because we had to learn with what we have until we could build a community with more knowledge and resources. So another reason why I'm grateful for you guys as well, because I know anything that I need, here's the community. So we'll talk about that later, but I'm so thankful for the Eddie Conference and meeting you guys.
Thank you, you guys. Okay, we have another question that came in. You're both amazing and so strong. Thank you for sharing your stories. Oh, it's not a question, it's comments. I'm also so happy that you guys took the step to share. And I would agree with that. I know it can be very hard and very emotional to share your stories. And it's a really important next step for you to be able to do that. It'll help you continue on your journey, but it also helps other parents to hear the things that you have been through, and it helps other kids come along. Keisha, your passion just like jumps off the screen out into, I feel like Keisha's dancing in my living room all around me. So the more that we can put folks like you in front of young people and give them someone to model after and reach for, the better off we're going to be. Okay, another one from Tami. Thank you for saying that, Keisha. We could ensure our information that goes out through family support includes information to ASL online classes and local ones. We're planning a webinar around trying to share everywhere, everything we can find, what ASL is going on in the state, and maybe even bring some in ourselves. We'll see if we can get that done. The ASL sign is free for newly identified children and their families, is another piece of what Tami said. So I think that's a great idea too. It might be something that we can work on going forward. Any other questions? We definitely share out the ASL to any family who voices interests.
This is Tami. I was thinking more we would send it out regardless of if they voiced an interest, because I think Tami talked about the importance of having that information, because you may think you're going down one path and decide to go down another path, or decide you need to add something more. So I think us including it all the time, people may not be interested in it at that time, but may come back to it and have that resource available.
Great idea. Thank you.
Yeah, I would say that Ryder, like in the last 14 months, his hearing loss has progressed, but we started signing with him right when we found out. And I'm like so thankful for that, because since his hearing loss has progressed, the sign language has been more, we've depended on it more. And I was just going to mention that one of the videos that I watched from Rachel Coleman was, she talked about her journey and when she started out and had a kiddo with significant hearing loss. And she said, I wish someone would have told me when I started this journey that my child would be bilingual. And that has always stuck with me, because I'm like, yeah, Ryder's going to be bilingual. Like, and so am I. And so is his sisters and his dad, like that's how cool is that? Anyways, I actually did have that in my script and I never said it. So
you're right. That's very
another thing, aside from making sure that information is there, is empowering people to be willing to make that shift in culture. And that's accepting that deaf is here, that there are more deaf people than we realize. So let's be conscious of that. And then having that love and support. Not only do I recognize it, but how can I help? That wraparound care. So it's a shift in the mindset that I think that we have to get there. And which is why we push the grain, pushing the status quo.
Any other questions for Keisha or Tami? All right, then I hope that folks join us next week on the 28th, again from 6 to 7 o'clock. We're going to have these two ladies back with us again, and they're going to be sharing a little bit of information from each one of them about their experience at the annual EDDI meeting, which is a large national conference around early hearing detection and intervention. And then also sharing their story about the first time that they met each other when we went to dinner the first night, and a fairly magical event happened between the two of them. And we're not saying anything else. You have to come back if you want to know what happened. They will tell that story next week. Enjoy your evening, everybody. Keisha, Tami, thank you for joining us and telling your stories tonight. We'll see you again next week.